All right, everyone. I am really delighted to welcome Chris Coladonato to L&D Cares for our Friday session. She is the hybrid workplace leader for Farmers Insurance and has been building connections and relationships virtually for most of her career. We were just chatting about how I'm struggling with being virtual. I'm used to an in-person, so it's fantastic that she has a lot of experience in virtual. She's focused on workplace experience that support on building a workplace experience that supports the engagement and wellness of employees and enables them to be productive in a hybrid environment, which is a new term I'm learning. So I really like that. With more than 15 years experience as a talent development professional, Chris specializes in virtual facilitation and helping distributed teams connect and stay connected. So I'm really excited about this session because my team is not a normally distributed team, and we all are now.
Yep.
So looking forward to hearing from you, Chris, and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. So yes, welcome to our virtual session here on virtual connections. You know, a few years ago, I never thought this would be my life, and now I can't imagine anything else. A couple of weeks back, I was getting ready to sit down at a virtual meeting. I was able to squeeze in a run before, felt really good. I was sitting in there, getting all settled into my WebEx room. Everybody was muted because it was a large meeting, and we were chit-chatting back and forth in chat before the meeting started. A friend and colleague of mine chatted in, "Hey, is that a new haircut?" To which I replied, "Nope, it's just slicked back after a run." And you can imagine, somebody probably thought that was a new haircut because my hair is usually much more higher volume than slicked back. And then she said, or started to say, and then nothing. Absolute silence. So I'm curious, think for yourselves. You can certainly toss it in the chat. What do you think was going through my mind? Or what do you think I might have done at that time? It's awkward. The awkward silence. You've had it before where you have the chat and you see the bubbles and then the bubbles go away. So for me, I paused and I was like, wonder if it doesn't look that good. Wonder if maybe before my next meeting, I should run over to my bathroom. I should redo my hair so it looks a little bit more like me. Was it really so awful? Oh, she probably got distracted. It does create some doubt. And it's just like, wait, what just happened here? And all of that happened in just seconds, absolute seconds. And it's surprising that small moment really just set me in a spiral. Now, the spiral didn't last too long. It literally lasted maybe 10, 15 seconds. And the reason for that is because Laura and I have been working together for years. We were comfortable with ourselves. We were comfortable with our relationship. So it really didn't last for long. It really just passed by after a while. However, it's a moment. And as Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy is known for saying, life isn't a matter of milestones, but of moments. Our relationships are built on moment after moment. Good moments start to build that relationship up. Those bad moments can knock them down. And we may not be thinking about it. You might think, and a couple of you are chatting in, that, I don't really think about anything like that. But if it happens again and again and again, it may start to create some self-doubt. And it may start to erode or keep you from building a relationship with somebody. Now, we're talking about these moments because connections are really built moment after moment. A lot of people think it is the big happy hours or the large events where we bring everybody together. And yes, those absolutely help. But moments are really what our relationships are built off of. And in the remote environment, this is even more important. And the reason for that is we lose those physical, those social, those visual, those nonverbal cues. We are no longer passing people in the hallway. We are no longer seeing people smile or frown. And yes, we do see that here and there when we're on webcams, but we're not always on webcams. We have a lot of text-based communications. I don't see anybody here today, but I see you typing and I see you chatting in. So it is even more important to really think about these moments. So I'd ask you to just think about what would have happened in that same situation if we had been face-to-face. Laura would have asked, new haircut. I would have said, no, just slick back in from a run. She would have either said, hey, looks good, or I like what you're doing there, or maybe just nodded and moved on. There would have been something. There would have been something there. The key here is, in a remote and virtual environment, you really have to be intentional about creating those moments. And it's not about the new flashiest technology. It's not about the, what's the next great piece of technology we can bring in. It's how do you create the environment for you to intentionally build these moments, these positive moments. And it's both for yourselves in and out of the workplace. It's for your teams, those you're working with. Maybe you're working with people in different locations, as well as your organization. And the goal here is to create the environment where you can have moments that matter. Totally agree. We're missing the body language. So you have to be really intentional about building that in to your experience, to your environment. So the way I like to think about it is creating moments that matter are really about making the space for it, making the time for it, and making it personal. These three things combined can really help you, whether it's you personally, you with your team, your organization, your colleagues that are in other places, to really make the most and to create an environment where those moments that matter can grow and can flourish. But it's about being intentional. All of this, you have to be intentional about it. So let's start with the first one. Make the space for it. So space in the workplace, we're usually used to, if we're familiar with a physical workplace, I haven't seen a physical workplace. Okay, I've seen them. I've been in them, but I've been virtual actually for about the past 13 years. So this space you're seeing behind me right now, this is my workspace. But traditional offices, they are built and designed very intentionally, whether good or bad. There is intention behind the lower cubicle wall or the higher cubicle wall, or an open floor plan, or a break space. People are intentionally creating opportunities for collaboration or focused work. They're creating opportunities and the environment for conversations to happen. You need to do the same thing when you're thinking about the virtual workplace. So it's really about how do you find the right tools and tech and methodology to be able to effectively communicate and collaborate. I like what Belle Cooper says here, finding the best ways to communicate with your team. I'd insert colleagues, SMEs, friends. It's really imperative when you're not working face-to-face, because I think it was Charlotte who mentioned, you're missing most, if not all, of the context of each person's situation. You're missing that visual cue, those things we're used to taking. So you have to start figuring out how to do it virtually. So ways to do that, a couple things to think about. Think about what tools and systems will you use. A lot of organizations are really taking a hard look at all the tool stacks that are out there. Do we use Slack? Do we use Teams? Do we use WebEx? Do we use something completely new and different? Do we use WhatsApp? Do we use fill in the blank? And sometimes it can be overwhelming. And if your organization or you personally, think about how many apps are on your phone. You can't possibly use them all at the same time. You're really selective on what you use for what. You have to think the same way as you're thinking about your workplace. So you have to think about what tools and systems will you use? What will you use and when? Do you use one thing for collaboration, maybe a mural or Miro? Do you use a online cloud storage like Google Docs or Box for collaboration? How will you communicate with each other? Are you going to go emails back and forth? Or are you going to use a Slack channel or a WhatsApp channel or a Teams channel? Again, fill in the blank. Because if you don't, it can become frustrating. It could become, well, wait, I put the document over here. Why are you emailing? Why can't we? And it becomes overwhelming. One of the ways to do that is to come up with an agreement. They're often called team agreements, team charters. These are great for any team or any organization to adopt and put into place, but especially for remote, because there are so many ways. In an office, physical office, you usually pass each other and communicate because we all know how to do that. That's how we were raised. We just are comfortable with it. It's what we know. In the virtual workplace, I can chat you, I can Slack you, I can email you, I can call you. Who calls each other anymore? So think about agreements. Team agreements, this is an example of one from Lucid Meetings. So team agreements are designed for you as a team. It can be a project team, a working team, whatever you want to use it for, to really think about what communication channels are you going to use? What collaboration tools and methods will you use? What's your meeting etiquette? Video on, video off? Is it okay if we don't have our video on? What are your connection opportunities? How are you going to connect as a team? What are your core hours? Making sure that people have that work-life balance. And there's so many more things that you can do. And it sounds really weird to say, we need to create an agreement about how we're going to talk to each other. But think about it. If you don't, emails will start flying around, instant messages will start pouring in, people will be contacting you every different way, and it can become overwhelming. I started working with a new team recently, and we're working on a project. I turned away from my computer for 15 minutes, was working on something else. 15 minutes later, I had 25 emails about this particular project. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. We never sat down and talked about, and the emails were back and forth, and I couldn't keep track of what was the change, what was this. We never sat down and talked about, you know what, we'll put things in Box, and we'll put all of our comments and insights there. So a team agreement can really help to build that understanding and create less of that overwhelm. The next piece about this is making time for it. All right, let's go back to thinking about the physical workplace if you're used to it. It's really easy. You walk in, people wave, hello, hi, how you doing? You see people throughout the day. You have those cues, those social cues, saying hello, walking out of the office, coming into having a conversation when you walk in. However, in the virtual workplace, you often find that, I'm getting sucked down my email rabbit hole and I haven't looked up to say hello to anybody or to connect with anybody. And I have all these distractions. I've got Teams, I've got my cell phone, I've got you may have others living in the same household with you and all of that. So how do you make time for those connections? You need to be really intentional. It's so easy to go a full day and just talk about business and that's it. Or it's easy to really just not say hello to anybody. So you have to be intentional about staying connected with your remote colleagues and make it a regular practice. And I promise you, I'm often asked, how do you stay so connected? I haven't been in a farmer's office in 13 years. But once you get in the habit, it really becomes second nature. So a couple ways to think about making time for it. Think about when and how you will connect with others. How will you do it as an individual? How will you do it as a team? Be intentional about it. And use existing opportunities. So think back to this past work week, maybe the work week before. What were those opportunities that you had to have a personal connection or get to know somebody a little bit better? I bet you can think of a few. Feel free to chat them in. I'm seeing some Slack things come in. Slack is one place, or Teams. You may be passing somebody in the virtual Teams hallway. You could wave hello. You can throw out a GIF. It is just a way to say hello. But you have to be intentional about it because, again, you could go the whole day without saying hello to anybody and just focusing on business. A couple of existing opportunities that I leveraged when I first started and I still use today. Start of a meeting. How many times, well, let's go back a moment. In the physical workplace, when you were all entering the meeting room, you were probably chatting about what just happened, maybe what you had for lunch. Hey, we're going down here for lunch. Does anybody else want to go? Did you see that new building going up over? So you're having this conversation. Often in virtual meetings, people are joining, there's silence, nobody's talking, and then you just get right down to business. Why not use the start of the meeting to connect? Just a couple of minutes, doesn't have to be long. You can throw out some questions. They can be business related or not business related, but just an opportunity to connect. Our teams lately, we've been talking a lot about what's the one thing that you can't live without in your home office. And we've been asking it at meetings, and somebody talked about this tool to kind of vacuum your keyboard. Yeah, I've saved it. I don't know what it is, so don't ask me. I can't remember. Maybe I'll find it a little bit later. But I'm like, oh, yep, I'm buying that because my keyboard, yeah, a lot of cat hair and crumbs. So start of a meeting. Knocks on your virtual door. Somebody IMs you with a question. It's really easy to be like, oh my gosh, I've got 50 things going on. What's happening? Why not take that as an opportunity to say, here you go. And hey, how's your day going? What's happening with you? Use that opportunity. Start of the day, you can scroll through your social networks, whether it's internally or externally. A lot of you are chatting about Slack and Teams. Use those. Just take a quick scan. You don't have to spend a long time. Just take a quick scan through. Maybe it's your team's instant message threads. Maybe that's another way that you can take a look. And one-on-ones, whether it's one-on-one with a colleague or one-on-one with your direct reports, take some time to have a personal connection. Speaking of personal connections, we are human beings after all. So you do need to make things personal. I'm not talking about sharing everything. What I'm talking about is opening the door to having a conversation about something other than the project or the work. It really can be tough to build relationships that are important to your career as well as your social connectedness when you're not in the same office every day. I'll admit it. My first 2 years that I worked from home, hated it, every minute of it. I fed off the energy of people face to face. I loved the hum that was going on in the background. But then I grew to love it. I figured it out. I figured out what works for me. And now I wouldn't have it any other way. So when you're thinking about making it personal, remember it's not always about the business. But you have to think about, well, how do you share more of yourself when you're working virtually? Sometimes it's really easy when you're in the physical workplace because a lot of us wear our emotions on their, if you had a really good day, you might be smiling. Well, you now have to be more expressive in the virtual environment. So again, you have to be really intentional about making a connection, sharing with others. Maybe it's a GIF, it's an emoji, maybe it's an announcement you want to make to your team. Hey, just had this really great fill in the blank. We share recipes a lot on our team. So a couple things to think about when you're building connections, personal connections. And again, I'm not talking about full share everything that's going on in your life, but just a way to take it away from the business a little bit. Couple things to remember is to be open, interested, and present, and almost a little bit more expressive than you normally are. Because remember, we're doing a lot of text-based communications. But it's so easy to get distracted by everything that is in your environment. You may or may not be looking at them in the eye virtually. It may just be a text. It may just be a phone call. So you have to really be present and shut away those distractions so you can listen to what they're saying. You can also use personal and professional check-ins, and it goes a little bit to what Christopher was chatting in. It's about having that quick check-in, whether it is a scheduled 15-minute check-in or it's part of your one-on-one. Don't forget, we're all humans. And then make sure you're sharing ideas, insights, interests. So if you have an intranet, we use Workplace by Facebook and use that to share ideas, but to build on others. Hey, I was over here and saw this. Again, you're showing interest in something other than the work that you're doing. So to have those moments that matter, a couple things to remember: make the space for it. So what tools, techniques, things are you going to use? Be intentional in making the time for it, and make it personal. So remember, we started this conversation and I shared with you the story of Laura, my coworker, who shared something and then just stopped sharing. The next week, I was chatting with her on Teams and I said, hey, so do you remember in our last meeting? Here's what she said. Her computer froze. She couldn't chat anyone and she couldn't do anything. She was just stuck and frozen. So again, we had built the relationship, didn't really matter much, but just something to keep in mind. It's those moments. And I like what Chip and Dan Heath said in the Power of Moments book. Moments are what we remember and what we cherish. So Brandon, I will stop here and see if we have any questions. I've been monitoring the chat a little bit, but I don't know if we have any questions in there.
Yeah, I've been monitoring as well. If you have any questions for Chris, please throw them out in the session feed here, and we've got a few minutes. We can answer some questions. Really liked the quote there, moments of what we remember and what we cherish.
It's a great book. I highly recommend. It's great for you to think about employee experiences in this way. They show some really great stories in that book.
It's interesting. I had, we have a question from Carrie. Let me throw that out first. How do you get started with people you haven't talked to in ages?
A couple of different things come to mind. For me, it's I either go back to, it's been so long. It's just as if you were greeting a friend. I think we were, and Brandon and I were even doing this when we first, he's like, haven't we met? I'm like, I'm not sure. Did we pass in the virtual hallway? So I like to go back to, how were we connected in the past? And you know what? Would you mind if we keep connecting maybe once a month and just make this a regular connection? So you just have to be open and do what I call do the ask. So go back to what maybe your history was, and then go for the ask. And I did see the question about the book title. Yeah, it's The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. Yeah, highly recommend.
I remember, so, we obviously last year had to go virtual, just into a distributed team almost immediately, it seemed like overnight. And late last year, after months and months of it, I had someone on my team say, I actually feel more connected than when we were in the office now. And one of the things we noticed on teams, you're a rectangle when the whole team's together. Everyone's a rectangle of the same size. So hierarchy is completely broken down. We had like a senior vice president all the way to individual contributors, and we're the same size rectangle in the room, right?
Same size rectangle, and you're also seeing a little bit into the personalities. So, I can see yours, you can see mine. I often get asked, is that a wine cork bulletin board? It is. Labor of love.
It humanizes all of us.
It does, absolutely.
It makes it okay that we have families and pets and children.
Yes, we are more than business.
Yes.
We are those humans.
All right, Chris, do we have any further? Yeah, exactly. No corner offices on Zoom. Thanks,
yes.
Trish.
Great point, Trish.
All right. Well, there it goes. Technical snags. Yeah, right. The technology sometimes gets in the way, but we make affordances for that, I think, as much as we can. We're learning. It's a journey, right? So.
Yeah, and you can always go low tech. There is a thing called the phone. I know it's strange, but you can always pick up the phone.
I've got like two of them sitting next to me, and I never make a phone call.
Go old school.
Exactly. All right, Chris, thank you so much. It was great to have you here and get us started on today, which is all about connecting and social. So really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming into the session. We appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's see you virtually around.
Bye, all.
Bye.